I came home early and sat across from my husband. I told him I had lost my job. I expected him to hug me, ask if I was okay, or at least say something kind. But he didn't. He just stared at me and said, "Well, you'll have to figure something out." His voice was flat, cold, like he didn't care at all. That's when I knew something was wrong. He had been acting strange for a while. Less affectionate, always busy, always tired. I used to think it was work stress. But now I wasn't so sure. So I did something I'm not proud of. I lied. I didn't really lose my job. I just wanted to see how he'd react if I did. He stood up and left the room without saying much else. A few minutes later, I heard him in the hallway. I followed quietly, just enough to hear. He didn't know I was listening. He was on the phone with someone. At first, I thought maybe it was a friend or coworker. But then I heard him laugh. Really laugh. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from him in months. "She finally lost that job," he said. "Yeah, I know. It's perfect. She's out of the way now." My heart dropped. He kept talking, saying things I couldn't fully make out. But it was clear. He wasn't upset about me losing my job. He was happy, relieved even, and he wasn't talking to a friend. He was talking to another woman. I stood there frozen, trying to breathe. He didn't know I was just around the corner, listening to every word. The man I married, the one I thought would be by my side no matter what, was laughing behind my back. I thought we were a team. I thought we shared everything. But I was wrong. I didn't say anything. I went back to the couch and waited like nothing happened. When he walked back in, he looked at me and asked if I was going to start job hunting right away. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak without crying. That night, I lay awake in bed next to him, wondering how long this had been going on. Who was the woman? How deep did this lie go? My hands were shaking, but I kept my face calm. I never thought pretending to lose my job would open such a dark door. I thought he'd support me. I thought he loved me. But now I wasn't even sure he liked me. Something inside me started to change that night. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. I couldn't stop thinking about that phone call. His voice, the way he laughed, the things he said, it all played in my head like a broken record. I knew I had to find out the truth. I couldn't ask him directly. He would lie. So I decided to look into things myself. One night, while he was in the shower, I remembered he had an old phone in the drawer of his study. I had seen it once when I was cleaning. I went straight to it. To my surprise, it still turned on. It didn't have a SIM card, but the messages and call logs were still there. He had used it not too long ago. I looked through everything. That's when I found her. Her name was Riley. At first, I didn't recognize it. Then I remembered, a few years ago, I helped a young intern at his office. She was polite, soft-spoken, eager to learn. I only met her once or twice, but I remembered thinking she was smart. I never imagined she would be the one my husband was laughing with behind my back. The messages were clear, flirty, personal. They joked about things only people who talked often would understand. He had sent her hearts. She called him babe. It made my stomach turn. I checked the dates of the messages. Many were sent on the nights he said he was staying late at work. I checked his wallet later and found a few dinner receipts tucked in. Expensive restaurants I had never been to. One of them was from our anniversary. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the phone in my hands, feeling like everything around me was fake. He had been with her all this time while pretending everything was fine with me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt numb. That night, I started writing everything down. Every date, every message, every piece of proof. I saved copies on a USB drive and emailed it to myself. I wanted to make sure I didn't lose anything. I didn't tell him I knew. I acted normal. I made dinner, asked about his day, laughed when he said something funny. Inside, I was watching, listening, taking mental notes. I wanted to understand how far this had gone before I made any move. Every time he said he was going to work late, I noted the time. I checked his location from an old tracking app we once used when we traveled. He hadn't deleted it from his phone. It still worked. One night, he said he had a team meeting. I saw he was at a rooftop bar. I followed Riley online. Her social media wasn't private. She posted pictures of food, wine, and city lights. In one photo, she was holding a man's hand across the table. I couldn't see his face, but I knew that hand. I had held it for years. I didn't want to lose control. I wanted to be smart, careful, quiet. So I kept collecting. Every message, every lie, every clue. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going to let this slide. He thought I was weak. He thought I didn't know. But I was watching everything, and I was getting ready. I thought I had already seen the worst. I had proof he was talking to another woman. I had seen the messages, the dinners, the lies. But things weren't finished. I felt something still didn't add up. So I kept looking. One afternoon, I sat down at our computer to check our bank account. I usually checked the joint account we used for bills and groceries. But this time, I opened the full account list. That's when I saw it. another account with both of our names on it. I had never seen it before. The balance was lower than I expected. I clicked through the history. Slowly, I realized money had been moving out of our main account into this one. Small amounts at first, then more. I kept scrolling. It had been happening for months. I never noticed because the changes were made just under what I'd usually look at. He was smart about it, careful, but not careful enough. I sat there in shock, staring at the numbers. This wasn't just cheating. This was betrayal on another level. He was hiding money. Our money. I copied the statements and saved screenshots. I needed proof. Later that week, I checked his messages again. I had made a habit of it now. That's when I saw one that made my hands go cold. He had messaged Riley saying, "Once she's fully jobless, we can finally sell the house. Start over fresh." Sell the house. Start over? I read it 3 times to be sure. He had a plan. He wanted me out of the picture. My job was the only thing keeping me stable, and he didn't even know I still had it. He thought I had nothing, and once I had nothing, he planned to move forward without me. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking, what if he had already done something behind my back with the house? So the next morning, I stayed quiet and waited for him to leave. Once he was gone, I started looking around. I found a folded paper stuck between books on his shelf. It was from a real estate company, a home appraisal. I looked at the date. It was last week, the day I told him I had a job interview. I had left the house to keep up the act, and he had used that time to let someone come in and check our home's value. He didn't tell me. He didn't ask. He didn't even hint at it. I felt sick. He had gone so far behind my back that I didn't even know what else he had done. He was preparing for a life without me, and he wanted to use everything we built together to do it. But I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat down, took a deep breath, and added the appraisal paper to the growing pile of things I was collecting. I had enough now to know this wasn't a mistake. This was a plan, and he had no idea I was slowly building mine too. Every day, I woke up next to him and acted like nothing was wrong. I smiled. I cooked breakfast. I asked how his meetings went. Inside, I felt like I was living in a lie. But I stayed calm. I needed to see how far he would go if he thought I was weak. I started pretending to be tired, sad, and unsure. I told him I was having no luck finding a job. I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to look at job ads. Sometimes I left papers out with fake rejections printed on them. I wanted him to believe I was lost and helpless. He didn't comfort me. He didn't try to help. He just nodded, told me to keep trying, and then went on with his day. The way he acted made me feel even more alone. It was like I didn't matter to him anymore. At night, I pretended to sleep early. I turned my back to him in bed and closed my eyes. But I wasn't sleeping. I was waiting. One night, I heard the soft sound of him unlocking his phone. I stayed still. Then I saw the light from the screen reflect on the wall. He was texting. I waited for him to turn the screen slightly. That's when I saw it. The name, Riley, was at the top of the chat. I could only see one message clearly. He had typed, "I hate lying to her, but it's almost over." I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to scream, but I didn't move. I stayed still, pretending I didn't see anything. He kept texting for a few more minutes, then put the phone down and turned off the light. He fell asleep fast, but I stayed awake. My thoughts were loud. I couldn't stop replaying that message. He said it was almost over. What did that mean? Was he planning to leave? Was he waiting for me to lose everything so he could walk away clean? Every time he kissed my cheek or told me goodnight, it felt fake. It felt like a stranger was in my bed. I looked at him and didn't see the man I married. I saw someone I didn't know anymore. Part of me still hoped this was all a mistake. Maybe it wasn't serious. Maybe he would come back to me. But the other part of me, the part that had seen the messages and the money transfers, knew the truth. I kept writing everything down. Dates, times, things he said, places he went. I saved screenshots, photos, anything I could find. I didn't know yet what I would do with all of it, but I knew I needed it. Some nights, I cried quietly into my pillow so he wouldn't hear. Other nights, I stared at the ceiling, feeling numb. I didn't want to live like this, but I needed to see the full picture first. I was no longer living with the man I thought I knew. I was living with someone who had turned into a stranger. And that stranger was still lying, still hiding things, still planning something behind my back. But so was I. Every morning, I sat at the same table, dressed in old clothes, pretending I had nowhere to go. He thought I was jobless. He thought I had no reason to leave the house. That's exactly what I wanted him to believe. But the truth was different. I never lost my job. In fact, I had been promoted just a week before I told him I was fired. My new role allowed me to work from home, so I used it to stay quiet and observe. I told my boss everything in private. She understood. She let me work behind the scenes, and no one else knew. From that moment, I lived 2 lives. One, where I was the helpless wife searching for work, and the other, where I was managing accounts, meetings, and reports quietly from a small setup in our guest room. I kept the door locked. I told him I used it to store old boxes. I didn't tell anyone at first, but I needed help. So I reached out to a trusted coworker. Her name was Leah. She had been with me through thick and thin. I told her what was going on. At first, she was shocked. Then she said 5 words I'll never forget. Let's find out the truth. Together, we began tracking Riley online. Her posts were open to the public, and she wasn't careful. She liked showing off fancy dinners, gifts, and hotel stays. Leah helped me look deeper. She checked tags, locations, and dates. We noticed a pattern. Riley was always posting from places that were close to my husband's office. Even on days when he told me he was traveling for work, she was posting pictures with captions like, "He's worth the wait," or "Another surprise dinner." Leah dug further. She checked Riley's name through some business databases. That's when we found something strange. Riley's name was linked to a small company that offered marketing services, but the company didn't really exist. It had no real website, no reviews, no address. We found a few invoices linked to that fake company, and the signature on them looked familiar. Leah compared it to something my husband had signed before. The handwriting matched. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about cheating. This was about money. Riley wasn't just someone on the side. She was helping him do something wrong, something that looked like fraud. They had made up a business. They were sending fake invoices and collecting money from somewhere. Maybe from his office. Maybe from someone else. I didn't know the full details yet, but I knew this was serious. I saved every file Leah found. I backed them up. I made copies and sent them to my private email. Slowly, the picture was becoming clear. He wasn't just lying to me. He was hiding something bigger, something that could destroy everything if it came out. I looked at him differently now. He thought I was weak and broken, but I was working behind his back, just like he had done to me. Only difference, I had the truth on my side, and I wasn't done yet. I knew I had to do something big. Watching and waiting had given me answers, but now I needed proof I could use. Quiet proof wasn't enough anymore. I needed them to say it out loud. I needed to trap them without them even knowing it. That's when I came up with the idea of a dinner party. I told my husband I wanted to invite a few close friends over to lift my mood. I acted cheerful and said I needed something fun to get my mind off losing my job. He smiled and agreed, not knowing I had something else in mind. I made a guest list with a mix of old friends, a couple of his coworkers, and one surprise guest, Riley. I didn't invite her directly. I told another friend to pass along the invite, pretending Riley was someone else's guest. I knew she wouldn't say no if she thought she had been invited by someone she trusted. I spent the day before setting up. I placed 2 small cameras in the living room and one near the kitchen. I hid small mics near the dining table and in the hallway. They were easy to miss. I tested everything before anyone came. I made sure they worked and would record the entire night. The night of the party, I acted normal. I wore a simple dress, did my hair, and smiled through every conversation. I kept watching the door. When Riley walked in, I almost forgot to breathe. She looked surprised to see me at first, but then quickly smiled, pretending like everything was fine. My husband looked a bit nervous when he saw her, but he played it cool. The party started slow. People laughed, drank, and shared stories. I made sure my husband and Riley stayed close. I offered them drinks often and kept filling their glasses. The more they drank, the more relaxed they got. I sat nearby, quiet and calm, acting like I was enjoying the night. After a while, most people moved to the backyard. I stayed behind, pretending I had to clean up plates. That's when I heard it. Riley and my husband were sitting close together on the couch. They thought no one was listening. He laughed and said, "I still can't believe how easy this has been. She hasn't questioned a thing." Riley giggled and replied, "I told you." Once she thought she lost her job, she started fading out. It gave us all the space we needed. They both laughed again. I felt sick hearing it, but I stayed quiet. Then Riley said something that made everything stop. "Anyway, I transferred the last batch of invoices this morning. It's done. No more fake paperwork for a while." He nodded and said, "Good. We just need to wait until she's fully out. Then we can start fresh." That was it. That was the moment I had waited for. I kept myself from reacting. I didn't even blink. I just walked to the kitchen slowly and waited until they left the room. Later that night, after everyone was gone and my husband had fallen asleep, I went back to check the recordings. I watched the scene again and again. Every word, every look, every lie. It was all there, proof of what they had done and how far they had gone. They had made fake invoices. They had lied, cheated, and stolen. And now I had it all recorded. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt calm. I had played my part well. They thought I was weak, but I had just pulled off something they would never see coming. Now it was my turn. After the dinner party, I had everything I needed. I had the recordings. I had the evidence. But I didn't want to shout or scream. I didn't want to ask why he did this to me. I already knew the answer. He didn't love me. He had a plan, and I was just in the way. So I made a new plan, quiet, careful, and smart. The next day, while he was at work, I called a lawyer. I didn't tell the lawyer everything at first. I just said I needed help protecting myself. We talked for almost 2 hours. I showed her the recordings, bank details, and what I had discovered. Her face changed from surprise to concern to confident. She said, "We'll take care of this the right way." The first thing we did was freeze all joint accounts. I had to sign a few papers, but once it was done, he couldn't touch the money anymore. No more sneaking money away. No more moving cash without me knowing. I also moved all my savings into a new account with only my name on it. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was mine. I needed to make sure he couldn't get his hands on it later. I set up a new password, a new email, and didn't tell a soul. Then I started gathering every financial document I could find. Bank statements, loan papers, tax files, and anything related to our house. I even took pictures of documents I couldn't take with me. I didn't leave a trace. I acted normal at home, smiled when he walked in, asked how his day went, and kissed him goodnight. At night, when he slept, I checked our files again and again. One thing I found really bothered me. The house paperwork still had both our names, but there had been talks with a real estate agent. I remembered the day he said someone had come by to fix the gutters. But now I knew the truth. It had been a secret house appraisal. He was planning to sell it without me. I couldn't let that happen. So I met with a real estate lawyer. I told her the full story. She said, "He can't sell the house without your signature, but we need to act fast before he tries anything else." We filed papers to stop any sale or changes. I also started the process of moving the house into my name only. It would take time, but we had started. Meanwhile, I wrote an anonymous letter to his workplace. I didn't sign it. I used a public computer and printed the evidence. I sent them the recordings and copies of the fake invoices Riley had talked about. I didn't want him to know it was me, not yet. I was doing all of this quietly. No yelling. No fights. He had no idea. He still thought I was weak and broken. He kissed me goodbye in the morning and said, "Hang in there, babe." I nodded and smiled, knowing what I had already done behind his back. It was hard, staying calm while everything burned under the surface. But I had to stay one step ahead. I had to move smart. If I acted too soon, he might run. If I waited too long, he might ruin everything. This wasn't about getting even. It was about taking control. I had trusted him for so long. I had believed his lies. But now I believed in myself. I was no longer waiting for a better day. I was making one. And soon he would see what that meant. He came home thinking it was just another day. I heard his car in the driveway, but I didn't move. I had already packed the things I cared about. The rest could stay. I sat quietly in the living room, waiting. When he walked up to the door, he tried his key. It didn't work. He tried again. Still nothing. Then I heard the knock. I didn't open the door right away. I waited a few seconds, then unlocked it and let him in. His face was confused, then annoyed. "Why did you change the locks?" he asked. I didn't answer. I handed him a folder. Inside were printouts of text messages, bank records, voice recordings, and pictures. I watched his face as he flipped through them. At first, he didn't say a word. Then slowly, his expression changed. He didn't look sad or sorry. He looked scared. He started speaking fast. He said I misunderstood, that it wasn't what it looked like, that he could explain everything. I didn't argue. I just kept looking at him without saying anything. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and didn't answer. It rang again. This time, I saw the caller ID. It was his boss. I stepped back and let him take the call. His face went pale. He walked to the other side of the room and spoke in a low voice. But I still heard the words. "No, I don't know anything about that. That's not possible. I can explain." He hung up and turned to me, angry now. "What did you do?" I stayed calm. I told him the truth. I had sent everything. The fake invoices, the recordings from the dinner, the screenshots of him and Riley. I told him I had also spoken to a lawyer. The house was in the process of being moved to my name. The bank accounts were frozen. He had no access anymore. He sat down and buried his face in his hand. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't try to hug me. He just asked one thing. "How long have you known?" I said long enough. He didn't cry. He didn't fight. He just sat there, quiet and still, like he didn't know what to do next. 3 days later, Riley was arrested. I didn't see it happen, but I heard about it from someone at his office. She had been caught using fake business documents. She had even used someone else's identity to open accounts. It wasn't just cheating. It was a crime. My husband was under investigation too. They were checking everything. His emails, his files, his expense reports. I didn't know if he would be arrested too, but I knew his job was gone. His name was ruined, and I wasn't the one who destroyed it. He did that all by himself. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not because I won, but because I didn't let him break me. He called me a few days after everything fell apart. His voice was low and angry. He said I had ruined his life. that I had made him lose everything. He said I didn't have to go that far, that I could have just walked away quietly. I let him finish speaking. Then I hung up. He wanted me to feel bad for him, but I didn't. I had lived in silence for months while he lied to me. I had stayed kind, careful, and calm while he planned a new life without me. I had given him many chances to be honest. He chose lies every single time, so I told the truth. I took all the proof I had, his messages to Riley, the recordings from the dinner party, the fake invoice trail, and put it in a folder. I wrote one clear message. He didn't just cheat. He lied, stole, and tried to erase me. Then I posted it. I didn't write his name, but everyone knew who it was. Friends messaged me. Some were shocked, some angry, some even said they had wondered for a while. His coworkers saw it. So did his parents, his sister, even old classmates. I didn't hide anything. I wanted people to see who he really was. He tried to deny it at first, but it didn't work. The messages had his name. The receipts showed the dates. The voice recordings were clear. No one believed his excuses anymore. He lost more than just his job. His friends stopped calling. His family said they needed space. He was alone, and he deserved it. I filed for divorce the same week. I already had everything in order. The lawyer moved fast. I asked for full control of our assets, and because I had all the evidence, the process went smoothly. He didn't fight. He didn't even show up to the last meeting. Once the papers were signed, I started clearing out the things that reminded me of him. I sold his favorite car, the one he always polished but never let me drive. I donated his expensive suits to a local shelter. I didn't want money from them. I just didn't want them in my house. The house, now fully mine, felt different. It was quiet but peaceful. I painted the walls, changed the furniture, and removed every photo that had his face in it. I even got a new coffee machine, just because he hated the smell of strong coffee, and I loved it. One morning, I booked a flight. Just one ticket. I packed light, and didn't tell anyone where I was going. I wanted silence. I wanted air. I wanted to remember who I was before all of this. He had said I ruined his life, but the truth was he ruined his own. All I did was take back what was mine and show the world the truth. And now, finally, I could start over, with nothing holding me back. I sat by the window, watching people move through the airport. Everyone was busy, carrying bags, saying goodbye, or laughing with someone they loved. I was alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt light, like a weight had finally been lifted off my chest. Months ago, I had no idea things would turn out this way. I only pretended to lose my job because I wanted to see how he would act when I was down. I thought he might hold me close, tell me not to worry, remind me that we were a team. But he didn't. Instead, he saw it as a way out. I don't regret it. Pretending to be weak showed me something real. It didn't just reveal how he felt, it showed who he truly was. The kind of person who smiles to your face while making secret plans behind your back. The kind of man who sees love as something useful, not something true. I spent many nights lying beside him, heartbroken but quiet. I let him think I was lost, while I was slowly finding myself. I started seeing the small things more clearly. The way he avoided eye contact. The way he always had a new excuse. The way he made me feel like a burden instead of a partner. Now, looking back, I don't feel sadness. I feel proud. I protected myself. I stood up without shouting. I used my strength without showing anger. I did what I had to do, and I didn't become bitter in the process. This whole journey didn't just break my old life. It gave me a new one. I learned that sometimes we have to let go of people we once loved to find peace. I learned that pretending to fall apart helped me see who would help me stand, and who would walk away. He thought he would be free of me once I had nothing. He thought I would stay down. He didn't expect me to rise. He didn't know I was watching, planning, and rebuilding in silence. As I boarded the plane, I felt no fear. No doubt. I wasn't running away. I was moving forward. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need answers. I had already won the moment I chose myself. The seatbelt clicked, the plane moved, and I smiled for the first time in a long while, deeply and freely. He thought he'd be free of me, but I'm the one who finally walked away. If you believe in finding strength after heartbreak, share this story with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. Don't forget to like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and follow for more real stories about healing, truth, and taking your life back. You are stronger than you think, and your comeback starts here. Let's walk this path together.